Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear students, first of all, I would like to congratulate Rich Mike and his team for organizing this highly important event, the African Regional Conference on Education and Skills Development. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the Jena Declaration to the African community of teachers and educators, and of course, especially the younger generation. Over the last couple of years, it became more and more obvious that humanity is indeed very close to missing the broadly agreed 17 sustainability goals in time. Today, most, if not all, experts share this insight. One of the important reasons for this is certainly the not very convincing inclusion of education and science into the implementation of the Agenda 2030. And this because it doesn't properly reach the key agent of societal transformation, the everyday actors, the civic society. Instead, we should, in the words of Gary Jacobs, the president of the World Academy of Arts and Science, summarizing the claim of the Jena Declaration, a broad-based global social movement to transform thinking and action in ways that enable the transition to globally sustainable living. How can this be reached? How can the speed and depth of the necessary social transformation be improved? The Jena Declaration has the ambition to prepare some answers to these questions. Before I turn to its key messages, let me first introduce its starting point and general perspective. Today, we are living, for the first time in human history, in an age where the predetermined natural conditions on site are no longer the decisive factor for human lives. This age is often referred to as the age of the Anthropocene. It is characterized as the age where human action and its consequences have a stronger impact on nature than the other way around, the impact of the untouched nature on our actions. Despite this insight, in the daily news we are confronted with various so-called natural disasters. The intensification of the frequency and magnitude of storms, floods, droughts, wildfires, etc., all over the world. Watching the presentation of the devastating impacts of these events makes it at first sight acceptable to speak of natural disasters. But is this really the correct wording? Of course, there are some good reasons to see in this a primary role of nature, not least as the destructive power seems to come from the natural sphere. But let's have a closer look at the so-called natural disasters. Strictly speaking, a natural event that doesn't endanger human facilities or human life generally is not called a disaster. It's just a natural event, but not disastrous as such. Disasters, it becomes only when touching human life and infrastructure. As the reporting news concentrate exactly on the devastating consequences for human life and infrastructure, would it then be rather be more appropriate to talk about those consequences of human action and its results not properly adapted to the condition, responsible for bringing human life and infrastructure in the reach of natural events? I think that's exactly the case. And that is exactly the turning point from where the Jena Declaration is starting. It's rather our capacities for the transformation of natural conditions that becomes decisive, and not the natural forces as such. Consequently, we need also to concentrate on the constituting threats of our age, and not just hanging on onto those societal considerations of the 19th century when public education has been established. So what are then these constituting threats of our age? It is dominated by the generalized global impact of industrialization, but also by megatrends such as globalization, the digital revolution, accompanied by profound social change, and a lack of sustainable ways of living. These processes implement the just referred turning point in human history. And this turning point has far-reaching implications for everyone. Therefore, we should focus learning and education on these processes. The Jena Declaration makes direct reference to them. And I'm turning now to a broader description or more precise description of the Jena Declaration. In the age of the Anthropocene, large aspects of the living conditions of the 21st century are no longer natural, but are produced by human practices, by practices that radically change the conditions of action. All forms of these practices and their outcomes are therefore fundamental elements of societal transformation. Many of them have global reach, and it's very important to understand the interconnection between local action, global processes, and vice versa. The core aim of the Jena Declaration is to accelerate the transformation of society so that the goals of the 2030 Agenda can be achieved on time on the basis of these insights. This declaration wants to gather the highest possible number of signatories to put pressure on the leading sustainability agencies and bodies to reach the SDGs in time. Please allow me now to turn to the declaration's leading key principle. There are 7 principles to keep in mind for the implementation of the Jena Declaration. The first one is a very simple one, but at the same time often forgotten. It's the insight that sustainability is about more than ecology, respectively more than simple managing of ecosystems or the environment. Much of today's thinking about sustainability is rooted in the idea that the human and the natural sphere are somehow opposed, that nature is simply our environment. But just the opposite is true. With our body, we are part of nature, and we are constantly part of nature. And just when we go on vacation or go on Sundays for a walk in the forest or things like that, we are always part of nature, and the way we understand, relate to, and transform nature depends on our cultural backgrounds. Therefore, sustainability is in fact about us as part of nature, guided by cultural schemes of interpretation. The second principle refers to the idea that true change towards sustainability can only be achieved if people begin to change their everyday routines and practices. Sustainability is more than just a fashion. It is in fact a kind of mindset, something that enables us to live sustainably. Here, especially, the role of culture is central. The ways we see and understand things are basic for the way and ways we act. This idea leads directly to the third principle. It is about the deficits about top-down approaches. If you have ever bought a one-size-fits-all shirt, you may know that one size only rarely fits all. The same holds for solutions to achieve sustainability. Top-down approaches that prescribe solutions for everyone hardly succeed. Instead, we need to find solutions that fit the specific conditions in different contexts. Or more precisely, we need to empower people to develop solutions themselves. And the direct consequence of this, we can say, as fourth principle, cultural and regional diversity shall be the starting point of any sustainability strategy. Everything people do is locally embraced, historically situated, and culturally embedded. And these conditions have to be respected for all policy and all respective measures. It's difficult to convince people to make their lives more sustainable if the proposition doesn't find even the slightest anchor in their everyday world. So, successful sustainability strategy must embrace cultural and regional differences from the beginning on. The fifth principle is about the additional role of the arts and of humanistic and social research. As I have said before, the arts open up new horizons. They can design at once a different world. Likewise, the social sciences and humanities help us understand social and cultural dimensions of the current transformation and get us away from the first aid solutionism. The Jena Declaration argues that the arts, social and humanistic research are key for making living sustainably not only possible, but even enjoyed by everyone. The sixth principle highlights that a true bottom-up strategy involves a change of our ways of producing and applying knowledge. Many sustainability policies try to teach and tell others how to do things properly, without knowing their cultural context, without respecting their expertise. We are convinced that robust solutions must be developed together, and that there is a great potential for collaborative co-production of new knowledge in a transdisciplinary way. The basis for this is mutual learning from each other. And finally, the seventh principle. It calls for civic engagement. Genuine bottom-up policies enable to use forces and creativity of concerned citizens of all generations, but especially of the young members of our global community. These are, in a nutshell, the 7 key principles of the Jena Declaration. The Jena Declaration is an invitation to make sustainable development happen at your own doorstep, to mobilize people around the planet and to enable fruitful outcomes for their engagement. Therefore, it's quite different from many of the current movements that are blaming governments for not doing the right thing. The Jena Declaration wants to encourage people to act themselves. And it will do that with 3 program lines. To reach these goals, the implementation of the Jena Declaration is focusing on three of them: the arts, civil engagement, and, for our event especially important, learning. Let me turn to the first line, program line, the arts. With this first line of action, we propose, as already mentioned, the role of arts in the development of new aesthetics for dealing with the natural as well as the cultural and social worlds. Mindsets, daily routines and habits depend very much on everyone's cultural background, their applied schemes of interpretation. How we do things depends very much on what they signify to us, how we see the world and also our place in it. The arts in all their forms are crucial for expanding mindsets, providing new perspectives on how to see things and ways of living. To mobilize artists of all forms of expression, music, fine arts, photography, film, performance, creative writing, poetry, numerical arts, architecture, culinary artists, and so on and so forth, for deep social transformation is of core relevance. The second program line is, as already mentioned, civic engagement. Civil society organizations are at the core of the Jena Declaration's second program line. Their expertise and commitment will be used in order to catalyze deep social transformation towards global sustainability. The role of civil engagement in social transformation can hardly be underestimated. Community groups, non-governmental organizations, charities, faith-based organizations, youth organizations, and many other groups in the first sector bring citizens together to engage for the common good. Civil society actors can play a vital role in raising public concern and creating pressure for change. They can amplify marginalized voices and offer unique perspectives that help innovate policy formulation and implementation at all levels of society. Through civil society organizations, a large number of savvy and passionate citizens can be reached who are willing to tackle today's challenges at their doorstep. And that's what the Jena Declaration really wants to achieve: mobilize people on the ground. The third line of action focuses on learning of new ways of living and to engage with teachers. And this because teachers are designed to share mutually what they know and learn with about 2 billion pupils and students all over the world. It is those students who will make the decision about sustainability throughout the 21st century. And we need them all to know as much as possible and to care deeply about sustainability. But here too, we need to treat new paths. Teaching and education are normally structured in disciplinary logic as school subjects. They mirror the scientific division of labor in the form of disciplines. Scientific discipline itself are typically associated with differentiation and specialization. Success in the academic system is linked to expertise and in a particular field, and building on this is linked to professional reputation and authority. Pushing the boundaries of knowledge and insight ever further forward is at the heart of the scientific self-image. However, the self-image cannot be easily reconciled with the social mission of solving practical problems. applying the logic of basic research to everyday problems very quickly reaches its limits. This fact is mirrored in a slow and not very satisfying implementation of the 17 SDGs. And so is the so far well-established school teaching. The role model of scientific or purely science-based authority stands in the way of cooperative collaboration with everyday actors. In order to promote the understanding of so-called real-world problems of everyday life and to generate socially viable solutions, practical actors should not be seen by science as lay people who need just to be informed and told, but rather as actors who are in principle experts in their own life work. Successful cooperation requires the involvement of all those affected with the aim of establishing a dialogue on equal footing. In short, transdisciplinary development and implementation of knowledge and expertise cannot rely solely on scientific authority, but above all on authenticity. According to the Jena Declaration, the willingness to learn from each other in processes of mutually appreciative exchange forms the basis of successful transdisciplinary collaboration in applied research, education, and continuing education. In order to promote a culture of scientific appreciation of non-scientific expertise, systematic opening processes in science education, and the inclusion of the broadest possible social sectors are required. The Jena Declaration provides a model for this. Let me conclude with some summarizing remarks. As described, an important prerequisite for achieving the goals of the Declaration, it is to respect the cultural world's social and regional living conditions and historical context of all people. Citizens should not experience the change towards a sustainable future as a suffering constraint. And it's very often, or even mostly, the case, as it is very often and even mostly the case. They should rather recognize it as a direct benefit, for example, for their own safety, health, and cultural achievement from degradation and destruction towards regeneration and flourishment, but also from extreme individualization leading to isolation towards social cohesion and inclusion, or in short, of solidarity. Learning from one another for the benefit of all, together with the moving from authenticity to authenticity, shall be the important step in that direction. It would be great if you all could join already more than 1,000 signatories of the Jena Declaration contributing to the movement by signing the Jena Declaration on its website. To do so would connect you with about 200 institutional partners and 40 project partners like the ESD Foundation on Education and Skills Development, and our funding partners like the World Academy of Arts and Science, the Club of Rome, main UNESCO chairs, and UNESCO as well, UN organizations. Looking forward to working with you in the future, and thank you for your attention. Thank you.